One of the first things developers learn after programming are tools like GitHub, which add a social component to coding. Now, this can be a challenge for developers like me who are introverts and start out as individual contributors. But there's not only power in numbers, learning how to make connections and going beyond just coding can make a huge difference in someone's career. So I wanted to talk to someone with a lot more experience than me at building communities around technology. And today I'm talking to Ravit Jain. Ravit is the head community evangelist from AtScale and host of the Ravit Show, where he's interviewed way more people than I have, with over 100 leaders in data science and AI. So I'm super excited. Ravit, can you describe a little bit about your journey into technology and then how you got started building communities, and maybe talk a little bit about hosting the Ravit Show?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. First of all, Ray, love your work. As I was telling you backstage as well, this is the 30th episode, but looks like you're doing it forever, and you've mastered it pretty well. So there's always so much to learn from you. A little about me, guys. I'm the host and founder of the Ravit Show. Like Ray mentioned, I also work as a head community evangelist at AtScale. A little about my journey. Just a few years back, obviously, I was working with a edtech company, which is Pact Publishing, and I was, closely working with tech authors to make sure where I could go out and amplify their books globally. And that's where I came closer to the data science, AI developer, cybersecurity companies and communities as well. And I kind of realized, since I was working in this space and I was trying to bridge that gap between the communities and Pact Publishing, I kind of realized that there was so much interest in terms of learning things, and
Mhm.
that's what actually got me more interested to first of all start the Ravit Show, where I was like, okay, I want to do something for the community, and how can I do that? And the easiest way that I thought was, and the most candid way, was obviously interviewing leaders who have built something in their own space in the data science, AI, or being a developer. You built something, so why not start with their experiences? And what better than a live session where if there's a CEO who was built like a unicorn, and if I can bring that CEO on the Ravit Show, and the community, the folks in that particular space can actually ask him questions live on a session, and those questions will actually be taken on the show. What better than that? Not every day where you can talk to these CEOs directly, but creating that platform for the data science AI community was the agenda. And that keeps me going. That also gives a good attention, to others who visit the show, but at the same time also a lot of folks who are on the show, investing those 30 minutes, and makes them curious about learning more and more. So yeah, obviously that also helped me. Like this was almost close to 4 years now.
Wow, wow.
It's old now. I know that I'm getting old with spending time. But it also gave me a good opportunity, because I thought of working on something big like this.
Mhm.
It gave me an opportunity to build a community. So
Mhm.
I never thought, obviously I want to build a community for the data science and AI enthusiasts or something like that. But this was the opportunity where I thought that, okay, people are watching my show. People want to learn more and more from things, but how do I get them under one roof? And that's when I started digging more into how I can create those communities, where their interest lies, what they kind of like in terms of learning as well. And you might see me, obviously sharing a lot of free material on LinkedIn, or also helping folks with learning paths, because day in and out the questions that obviously I get is, how do we break into data science? How do we learn more about AI? How do we, I'm, 5 years into the game of data science. Now I want to switch to data engineering. What's like the roadmap there? So, obviously I can't have answers to everything, but you know I'm pretty sure the folks who are in this space will have answers to all these questions. And that's what I did was, I started a Slack channel. I started a community on LinkedIn, a small group chats there. I also started creating a newsletter. Like, I've put a newsletter together. We have almost a good 34,000 folks that have subscribed to the newsletter. We are growing. So it also gives me a good space to, share my knowledge as much
Mhm.
as I can on different platforms, grow that, and make sure, everyone else who are on those platforms as well can learn from each other. And that's like the biggest win for a community builder, because that's what my agenda is. Like, what I can't answer, at least someone who's an expert in this space can answer those questions. And that's how we are building up a healthy community. And I think, for anyone who's out there thinking to build a community around, if you're a creator, instructor, you should do it. Don't think about it. Time is now. People want to learn from people, because those are the real experiences that come forward. But yeah, this is, obviously I've done more than 120 shows on the Ravit Show. We've had, like, we closely work with 90 plus companies in this space, in the data science and AI space. We make sure we are getting the community the right insights that they're looking for, and at the same time, uh, we are helping the community in the best ways possible for them to upskill and get to the next level in their career as well.
Yes, you have done at least I guess over 100 different shows. At least you talked to like about 100 different people, maybe more shows than that. And you have some fantastic people on your show. What do you
Thank
think
you.
gave you the strength to kind of start that from scratch? Like, how was it? Because I know it's been really hard to sort of, get to the point where people will want to come onto maybe a new show? Like, what would you tell somebody who's maybe thinking about getting started, maybe doesn't know anyone? Like, how did you grow? I mean, you have something like 34,000, subscribers on YouTube. You have over 100,000 subscribers like on LinkedIn, 133,000 on LinkedIn. I mean, how do you go from something that you just have a passion for building a community, which I think is where you were coming from, to
Yeah.
having, like, I don't know, it feels like a lot of times it feels like you publish something, especially on YouTube nowadays, and it's like, I don't know, six people looked at it and you're like, man, I really work hard on the questions, finding the right guest. Like, how do you work through that?
Yeah, so definitely, I agree with all your points there. Initially it can get daunting as well, where you kind of feel that, oh, if I'm asking 10 people, there was just one response, and that one person is just asking me, who are the other guests that, or can you share a sample of the interviews that you've done? So
Mm.
how do you, so it kind of becomes a little difficult. But at the same time, it kind of gives you an opportunity. You don't have anything to lose when you're getting into this game. So what I feel is, out of that 10, if you get one response and if you can convince that one person to come on, you've already done the job where
Hmm.
you've got them on board, and that's what you wanted. So you get that one person on board, you create a case study out of it, and it's not going to happen with one as well. Trust me, I still try for folks who are, might be big shots sitting with maybe Bill Gates or Elon Musk, or maybe someone else, and they might say that, not right now. Maybe after a year or something, we should get on board and do an interview. So how I look at is it as is, where there are levels of these
Hmm.
things as well. like if you are at level 1, don't worry, there might be many more no's. But once you kind of reach that level 2, you'll have better yeses, because you've already done, you've gone past the level, ground level. And then what happens is, you obviously, uh, after a few levels, you kind of also have that opportunity where you can be a chooser, and you can
Hmm.
say that, okay, these are the people that I would want on the show, or obviously get get closer to them. So I think that those are interesting ways. But I think just don't have that mind block or that roadblock in your head about not starting, or being worried about will it be for good, will it perform very well or no. I think just do it, because and don't worry about the views, the likes, for starters, even in the later stage. Because what happens is, once you kind of start talking, if you know your audience pretty well, you will actually talk to them. And
Hmm.
I always say this, and I say it very loud to even those numbers don't really matter, but your audience would. Like I, and I'm not saying I'm not proud of, obviously the 130K followers that I have, or the large following on YouTube. I love it. Everyone would love those numbers. I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
about that. But uh, someone who also has like 10,000 followers, but are the real target audience for them. If you're a data engineer and you have like 10,000 data engineers following you, trust me, that's like the biggest win that you will ever have. And if you have like, say, 50% of those, 10,000 active, that means 5,000 of the active members
Hmm.
in your following, who are just the right target audience for you, there's a huge
Hmm.
market for you. You'll grow endlessly. So don't always, run behind numbers, rather run behind the right target audience, and be very focused, is what I feel. And once you're focused, you won't worry about, you definitely won't worry about, uh, how it kind of plays for you, because you'll see a lot of traction, I feel.
Hmm.
And so, there's other side as well, where you think about a post, like on LinkedIn. As a creator, like I myself kind of feel sometimes you might struggle with content that you want to put out, because you want to be out there every day, you want to put out something for your audience to be engaged. So sometimes you overthink content and you put out, and it doesn't do well at all. And that's when you kind of start feeling that, oh, I spent like 3 hours thinking about it and writing and cleaning that stuff,
Hmm.
and I got like 3,000 views, and it has ducked completely. And there's this post I thought about, because it was a Saturday or weekend, I still wanted to post. I thought about it for 3 minutes and I just put it out there, and the world is looking at it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's so funny.
so
Okay.
that's what it is about, the content, being in the content creator journey. But at the same time, starting off as well in your journey, you don't need to worry about numbers, you don't need to worry about the nose. You like It's good to have something better than nothing.
Hmm.
It's very cliche, but it is, something which I love. Where if someone tells me, "Oh, Ravit, you don't have 200 interviews," I'll say at least I have about 100 somewhere. So I'm happy
That's
about
right.
that.
Yeah,
So
I think
there's
that we
always, yeah. Go
sorry,
ahead,
I
please.
I think that we definitely everybody chases after numbers, but I think for me and maybe you, like the more important thing is finding that audience. I'm always really pleased because the people that
True.
come listen to you are kind of really interested in what you have to say. And that's, for me, being, in a very kind of specific full stack development kind of, a place that I don't always find people who I can talk to who are exactly like me and are into the same stuff. So being able to talk to somebody like you is really great. I want to acknowledge, like, one of the things that I love about this show is where people check in from. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge some of the people
Wow.
here. Scott from Lakeland. We have Mohammed from Austria, Saudi Arabia, and hello, Madi from the moon. That's great. That's great. At our secret base on the moon. Madi, good job. Neil from Jersey Shore. So it's really kind of amazing that I know you're pretty far away from me. It's not where you're at. So it's good to see people, tuning in. So we have Anman from Germany, uh, people from Puerto Rico, so Hispanic people like me, Orhan, who is a really one of the people that is always talking to me on LinkedIn. So one of my great followers that I really appreciate, and
Wow.
Andre as well as from Brazil and Mexico. Uh, so it's pretty. I always love that. I mean, I know that you're not supposed to be so proud about the numbers, but I feel like, especially on LinkedIn, like you get this global audience more so than in other places, and I really enjoy that. It makes you think about the rest of the world. So now that I showed those people, more people are checking in. Look, Christina is checking in
Wow.
from
Hey,
Malaga in
Christina.
Spain. That's great. So some of our friends. So Christina was in a previous show as well, and
Nice.
Moo Sadiq Muhammad from London. So how exciting! I know you have a lot of fans. So a lot of the people that have been on your show, I know are really good friends of yours, and that's also really encouraging that you just you get to make a lot of friends that you can sort of check back with and talk to later on. And I know in the pre-show we talked a lot about just the things that we like and getting together perhaps about other things. It's really encouraging because it encourages you as well. So there's also
Yeah.
Susan. So she must know you or maybe know me.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. You also mentioned that you have an evangelist role, and that's sort of like a newer thing. We hadn't really heard of those kind of roles where you're really kind of helping to promote a specific business. We didn't have these before, but now it's kind of part of a lot of bigger companies. So talk a little bit about that position and what value that kind of developer relations or evangelist can actually bring to an organization.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I usually get this question a lot about what is an evangelist and how do you position yourself as an evangelist in the company, and what does an evangelist do? So basically, I'll obviously put it into three or four bullets how evangelists actually kind of operate. Obviously, they wear multiple hats as the name itself says, evangelism. So you need to be very much a marketer out there, where obviously you have various duties such as social media. You need to be a communities person,
Hmm.
where you operate in the community. You know the people, and you know what's the messaging that you want to send out as an evangelist. Like for AtScale, obviously for us, semantic layer is like the biggest the product that we have. And what obviously for us is that, like for me, my responsibility would be as many people as they can know about semantic layer, and they can come closer to AtScale in any which ways, through content, through our podcast, through social media, through leadership voice, through influencers, through the other thought leaders in the space, through our partners. Running on that direction and creating a plan and a strategy is what an evangelist would do. And definitely it will, like, I would also produce a podcast. I would go out and obviously recruit those leaders who can speak our language to the community, and that would create a very intriguing, I would say, a very intriguing messaging for the company and for the leadership as well. And that's basically how evangelist role goes on and on. But it's
Hmm.
not limited to that. Like, you might also see me doing interviews on site, like, because that's if it's my forte, obviously I'll wear AtScale had, and go out in a conference and get those leaders in under one roof, where I already have them under one roof, but bring them to our space and tell them that, okay, let's hear your story, let's hear what you think about semantic layer, and getting them closer in a way which is not salesy. We don't want to, obviously, an evangelist doesn't
Hmm.
have to look into sales. He's not responsible for that, but he's responsible for at least creating that spark in the customers or the prospects, create that spark in their mind that, oh yes, Ravit was talking about semantic layer, or someone from AtScale or thought leadership or the community or an influencer was actually talking about semantic layer. What is it?
Hmm.
Let's go to their website, learn more about it, and maybe if it's a good fit, buy it. So that's
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
how it kind of happens for an evangelist. Like I said again, it has multiple roles in just one role that you need to play around. So that's the fun.
Yeah, I think that for companies, the one of the big benefits is that you get somebody that really understands the product. I think that, if you're not maybe one of the huge names like Microsoft or Google or somebody like that, you might not be as well known. So if you can find someone who can really
Yeah,
help let people know about what you're doing, I think it's a huge advantage. And yeah, it's hard. Like they can develop content, whether it's, YouTube videos, shorts, interviews, like you said. And it's actually,
yeah,
it works super well because, you have to break into a certain level for people perhaps to start, focusing on courses for your product, organically, but you can create some of that by having these different people. So I'm sorry, I was laughing a little bit because Susan mentioned in the chat, if anybody finds our summer, can they please return it? I can so relate, Susan. We have Florida is full of rain, so in every one of these shows, I'm always
oh,
like peeking at my window to see what the thunderstorms are like. But thank you for saying that. So, another thing that I've noticed is that in addition to being an evangelist, you mentioned influencers and how you work with them, and there's an opportunity for people to become either influencers and perhaps also technology teachers. There's actually a lot that people can do by learning to those skills, like the sharing of your knowledge. I think is a fantastic and viable career. I know we're both in this field. So, what
yeah.
are some of these sort of opportunities that these different platforms that we can be on create?
Yeah. So it depends. Like in terms of
Hmm.
being a creator or being an influencer in itself can uh, that's your question, right, Ray? In terms of putting yourself in the influencer shoes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that okay. So there are, in addition to specifically working for a company, you can just sort of focus on sharing whatever knowledge, say whatever your
Yeah,
specialty is, and kind of build a platform just on that ability to share with others. And I think that, especially the people that you interview on your show are very successful. We know we have Christina from our show who has a huge following. You have a huge following. You mentioned Kate also. People with huge followings can really have an impact, almost like individual of this role
yeah,
of developer advocate. And sometimes it feels more, I don't know how to call it, like organic or I want to say, it's sometimes it's better if you can find somebody like that to come to the show and talk about your product. So what kind of things maybe can come out of somebody who's more
yeah.
focused on being just a generalist kind of influencer?
Yeah, so I think there are various things that could actually come out from, obviously becoming and creating content in general as well. Like you don't have to just, have your identity working for a company. Rather, you can, obviously create an impact through the content that you're creating. The first step is obviously focus. If you want to grow, if you want to obviously see the numbers as well, you would want to focus on something that you are wanting to, obviously grow in, if it's about
Mm-hmm.
data engineering, or if it's about, data analyst role, or if it's about something else, data science, then you need to start talking that language to your audience, your target audience, so you grow in that space. And that will actually get you many more opportunities as well. Like, talk about Christina, Suzanne in the chat as well. Everyone, they have their own businesses around it, but at the same time, what they make sure is, they are talking a language that helps their community. Like for Suzanne, it's
Mm-hmm.
obviously, she fixes the dirty data. So I know her by that, because she's created a brand around it. She'll talk
Mm-hmm.
that language, and she'll help a lot of companies in that direction. So
Mm-hmm.
companies would also know her for that. That, oh, Suzanne, yeah, I've heard her, I've met her. So she has like a famous, obviously, uh, thing that she talks about is COAT, COAT, which is pretty amazing. So she says she's an accidental influencer, but I think, definitely she has, obviously worked around it, in terms of, worked around in a way where she has worked it in a way where the community can learn from what she's doing. So, and with Christina as well, or with any other influencer, I feel, they have had, their first motto was always to teach and educate others in the space, with having one focus, and then, growing from there. And that obviously gets a lot of opportunities. Not just from the, I'm pretty sure they get, job,
Mm-hmm.
they get job offers day in and out. They get brand deals. They get other promotional stuff. They get an opportunity to create courses with LinkedIn. I'm creating a course with LinkedIn. I'm done with that. The next month I'm coming out with the course. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the types of opportunities which will come your way once you kind of get into the space. And yeah, like, to be honest, I like the word creator, but it is what it is. People will call you
Mm-hmm.
influencer. Maybe there's some other word that people might use, but there are many pros and cons. I have just spoken about the pros. There are cons. You need to be super careful when you are on record, because if you have a large following, you have a lot of people who are looking at you,
Mm-hmm.
and also, obviously also making sure where you're speaking something that, they have been influenced by. So yeah, just be careful about, what
Mm-hmm.
you do, and what you put on record.
Yeah, so some good notes there from Susan. I also wanted to say
Nice.
now I'm really curious about this. So Jefferson actually mentioned that ChatGPT recommended your platform. I've been hooked ever since. Can't possibly be mine. I'm imagining it's your platform, Ravit. You've been at this much longer than I have, but yeah, it's that's really cool. And I think that you gotta start if you're thinking about this sort of thing. You gotta start at the ground level. I know that for me, just enjoying to share content and teaching is what got me my job at LinkedIn. When I I went to the lynda.com website, which is what it was at the time, and I
Yeah.
applied 3 times. The third time they finally got a hold of me, but by that time I'd been teaching in school already. I did a class at a community college for a while, and
Yeah.
so I had things to show, right? And so this is, I think, one of the ways that you get into this is you got to start doing it so that when an opportunity comes, whether it's an interview from somebody, you can show them things that you
Yeah.
have done. And so that's
Yeah.
really important that you start working on things and people will find you when you have stuff out there. But if you have something, whether that's starting your own podcast and having some interviews, like you mentioned, that some of the bigger names, they're going to want to see who else have you interviewed, how has the interview gone in the past, and
Mm.
to get somebody like Christina to come on the show and support you and just I've seen the data community be really fantastic about their sort of cross support. So once you find, I think, the right community, I think things will start happening, and that's
For
when
sure.
it feels like a bonus sometimes when things start happening, but I think it comes from a long line of preparation. So talk a little bit maybe
Yeah.
about some of the things that kind of help you in your day-to-day role, like running a show like this. What sort of tools are you using to make your life easier? I mean, are you? I imagine you're probably doing ChatGPT because that's maybe why Jefferson found you, or what kind of things do you use on a day-to-day basis to like organize and ideate and create things?
Yeah, so I'm a very like not so organized. Like I always tell it to Christina, she's an audience, that I'm not as organized as you are, but I still try my best. Like there are various tools that I use, like for newsletters. Obviously, ConvertKit is the best one that I kind of feel, and it's very user friendly. Where you can track your subscribers, you can track the number of the open rate and all of those things. Obviously other tools also have, but it's easier in terms of putting out your content, and it has various templates as well. So that's for the newsletter in terms of tracking things, and just shooting out any emails that you want your community to learn about. If I do a show, obviously I put it out there on the newsletter, just for the folks, if they want to, if they're interested about the topic, they can join the show, and have some questions for the guests and all of those things. In terms of the live show, like I mentioned, obviously I use StreamYard. So StreamYard is something which is a tool that 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 is very simple again to use.
Hmm.
It does the recording like you see it on there. I think
Hmm.
it is the best tool to obviously your run your live shows, because I can
Hmm.
multi-stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then there's other platforms like Twitch as well that it supports. So it's been a game changer for me for a while, and I've been using this since day one. So yeah, I would suggest this for the
I
live
know, yeah, I know
streaming.
that when I first got started streaming, I remember LinkedIn had first come out with streaming on their platform,
True.
and I remember that there was only a few ways that you could connect, and one of them was like OBS or some other complicated thing. And I looked into it, and I'm like, I don't have time to like learn a new thing. And I remember that I ran into StreamYard because somebody who I knew wasn't extremely technical. Like I could have figured it out if I spent like 6 days. I figured out how to do OBS or whatever. But I had somebody that had a show already, and like I gotta find out what they're using because I
Right.
know that if it's a simple experience, it would be awesome. And yeah, I started out with StreamYard. So good. If you want to get into the game, I mean, it's absolutely the simplest thing to start with. I use Ecamm Live just because I've gotten to the point where I like things to look a certain way and have like these
Yeah.
fancy features. But either of those tools, or there's a lot more out there now. I think in the pre-show we were talking about Descript and how that
Yeah.
kind of like helps with editing. So that's another like
It's
platform that I
amazing.
really use, and it's unbelievable. Like you can basically do your edits kind of in a Word document or in a text document, and we were talking about they just added some features where you can fix
Wow.
like where you're looking. So you'll see that in this show, sometimes I got like three streams going. So sometimes I'll be looking over here because that's where I pull up the websites, or I'll be looking over here because that's where I have a copy of the live show. So Descript now can fix where you're looking. Does all kinds of amazing things. So yeah, StreamYard for sure. Descript is what I use as editor. I don't know what else. What else do you use for your shows, or maybe post production, Rabbit?
Yeah. So to distribute it to as it as a podcast, I would go on Anchor and distribute it on Apple, Google, Spotify, and there are seven more platforms where I distribute it as an audio.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who obviously are interested to obviously learn more from the show just through the podcast, because I've had experiences where people have just identified me like, oh, you were on the podcast, we listened to your podcast, that's it. we don't know
Mm-hmm.
about any live show as well that you
That's
do.
interesting.
So yeah, so there's a different audience that sits there who might actually commute to their work, and they would want to listen to the podcast, and that's where they do it. I don't know, Ray, if you already have started distributing it as a podcast as well, but that's a good way, I feel, to distribute your content at various places. It also gives you a bonus where when you go out and type your show's name, it
Mm-hmm.
will come out on various places. So I always suggest anyone who's doing a live show, don't forget to distribute your
Yeah,
content on podcast as well.
that's amazing that you mentioned that some people know you only as the podcast because it's
That's
definitely
it.
something I just kind of started doing, and
Nice, very cool.
it's a little bit of an extra sort of work, but I think it's another thing that you can try and eventually that can pay benefits. In the chat, Susan mentioned Camtasia, so that's another sort of good tool.
Yeah,
And of course, I use ScreenFlow, so if you saw the sort of beginning of the show, I have like a little animation that I play. So
yeah,
that's actually done on ScreenFlow, another super good tool that will just make things a little bit easier for you. And it's really nice because one of the things that I can do is I basically have a template that I built with ScreenFlow, and it makes it super easy for me to
easy.
change. Next week, all I do is basically change the boxes of text. I do like a replace for the person's photo, and yeah, it's if you can make your life easier using some of these tools, you'll just be able
Yeah,
to do more and then just be faster. Over time, I remember when I first started, I don't know if this happened to you, like I used to pretty much block out my entire morning to prep for the show. Now, I don't really, I need like, a good 30 minutes before somebody comes on the show to do the
yeah,
work. I also found this one tool called Deep Image. There's a lot of things now that will do upscaling and background removal, but this is a really nice tool that I use because when you get photos, sometimes they're like low resolution for the guest, and you need something. You see in the style of our episodes, have like a
yeah.
big photo of the individual. So this will upscale them to make them, and it makes that process like super simple.
Very cool.
So
Yeah, and I
there's a
think
lot of different ways of doing this, but it's just this is the
yeah.
fastest thing that I have. So
Yeah, for sure. I think one which is like a no-brainer, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks would be using is Canva. So
yeah, Canva,
Canva
yes.
is yeah, it's like if you are just getting into the designing game, and if you want to, playing around with designs, I think Canva is like uh, a lifesaver. You can do so many things with it, and it does what it does best is it supports various things, not only just images, but it will also support I would say documents. It would support videos and much more. So yeah, I think these are great tools, Ray, that you already using. I'll check out the last one, which was it AI powered, right? Something.
This one's called Deep Image. So what I use it for is just like upscaling and removing backgrounds, and it
Yeah.
does them all like immediately. So if let's see, I think if I showed you, yeah. So I don't know that I have you in here, but I'll pull up really quick what I do basically. So these are some of my upcoming guests for the show, and once I drag and drop the image in there, it basically lets me do a background removal
Oh,
and upscaling, and you can see the difference is really amazing. So and it's the fastest thing. Like I could open up Photoshop and spend some time removing the background. Photoshop doesn't have the best sort of scaling tools, but this is probably a better one. So once it loads up, I just drag and drop the image, and it takes all the background out in like about 5 seconds, and it upscales the image, cleans it up. It has like face improvement as well. So when you go to it, it's just I don't have to spend a lot of time with that task. And honestly, anything that shaves a few minutes or a few seconds off of my time, it's just worth gold, because then I can just focus on like the show. And definitely I use ChatGPT for a lot of brainstorming. It's really fantastic for brainstorming. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah,
And,
it's really the tools really
ChatGPT,
do make a big difference.
for sure. In which ChatGPT, I think people kind of focus it just for plain content in things, but I think if you dig deeper into ChatGPT, you can get a lot of knowledge as well. Like start
Hmm.
talking to it, have that conversation where you can get deeper into questions as well. Like currently, if you ask obviously ChatGPT the top 5 tools to use for podcasting, it might give you just plain details about it. But if you can kind of get deeper into it, ask questions which is better in terms of the user interface as a beginner, and then get more deeper into it,
Hmm.
I think you can leverage ChatGPT in the best ways possible. You can obviously recreate content through ChatGPT. You can put if you have like for an event that's coming up, you can put those points and it can actually give you a good framework, a good positioning in terms of the content, so it looks rich when people start reading, much more professional as well. So yeah, ChatGPT is like a good deal for all the content creators out there, I think, to make it richer, but just use it and get the best out of it. It will help.
Yeah, for
To
me,
take
I
it.
think like just its ability to brainstorm. Like when I think of the questions for the show, I like to, it's hard for me to sort of, I don't know, come up with a lot of questions from brainstorming. You can ask ChatGPT to give me 100 questions that I could ask this person. It's good if you maybe put their bio. Like one thing that I've been doing is, when I have to write the bio for the person, I use, so LinkedIn has a fantastic feature where you can actually download a PDF. So I don't know, this is really useful for whenever you have to talk to somebody. So
Right.
if I maybe look for Ravit, like your profile, and I find you, then you can actually come in here and say save this to a PDF file. And what I've been using lately is actually Bard. I'm sorry, not Bard. What is the other tool for Anthropic called Claude? So Claude is like yeah, so this is like another tool that is like ChatGPT, but the one huge advantage is that it lets you upload PDFs for free, and it does a much better job at taking that PDF and giving you information based on the PDF, and it takes
Wow.
much
Yeah.
larger bits of context than ChatGPT does, even with the Plus version. So it definitely, I use this for all my summaries. You can see here that
Nice.
basically I ask, like, I have like a template that I use for this series of questions that is kind of like this: write me a bio based on this profile. And I even create
Very
like a
good.
template by putting variables, right? And then I put
Yeah.
the variable here, and then I add the description for the show. So it's looking at the PDF that I'm uploading from LinkedIn's profile. It's also
Nice.
looking at the context that I've given here, and then it's also looking at the description of the show. And it really does a pretty good idea. And then I always like ask for, hey, don't just give me one version, write five, and if I don't like them,
Very
do
true.
10 more.
Yes.
Just keep on going until you find something that inspires you. And then I don't end up just copying and pasting, of course. Sometimes I grab, oh, here's a good sentence, or here's a good technique, or I have a further conversation with the AIs about more of what I want. Like but sometimes it'll say something like, Ravit has 20 years of experience, and I'm like, I don't really want you to talk about how many years, because that doesn't really
Yeah.
necessarily mean anything. So let's talk more about this. And when you have a conversation with the AIs,
Very
they
true.
can kind of hone in on more of what you need. Same thing for the questions for like a show, and this could be for whatever you're doing in your regular work. Like learn how to use the tools to make you more efficient. And I have basically prompts for all the different tasks of the show, and it
Yeah.
just makes my life easier. So talk a little bit about your. I really want to hear about the Ravit show just over time. What do you know now that you wish you could go back and tell yourself when you first started? I know that you did a lot of cold calling to get all those guests, but
Yeah.
based on your experience, like what will you tell yourself?
I think one thing that, obviously now I say it loud,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always that I tell everyone that, don't think, just start.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get on this journey late. Time is now,
Mm-hmm.
and as you start, you'll grow. So if I would have started like 5 years back, then the day when I started, actually, I would have been in a different spot altogether. So
Mm-hmm.
why wait, and why think about, something that you wish to start, and you can excel in, and there's no certainty. Like, people, obviously back off because there's no certainty, but there's no certainty in anything, right? So
That's
why
true.
worry about, something which is not in your hands? Rather, the things that are in your hands is capitalize on your knowledge and try something new, and something that is your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, one thing for sure is, if your passion is about starting something in the influencer world or becoming a creator, uh, then only get into it. Otherwise it becomes, just because everyone's doing it, I want to do it. It won't work that way. Like, I feel a lot of people always, always come to me and say that, how do you do a job, how are you an entrepreneur as well, and we also want to get it to that journey. And I'm like, that journey is because I'm happy to spend like 14 hours working, and it's not really work for me then, because I kind of work on something that I love doing. So that's pretty easy. And sometimes people say, oh, that's the hustle culture, we don't want to get into it, which is fine. Like, I don't promote hustle
Mm-hmm.
culture myself. I would say, it's something that you love doing it, then get into it, and don't worry about the time, because you'll enjoy the time that you are spending around it. So definitely, if you're passionate, get into it, and then you'll reach places. So,
Mm.
but you have to start somewhere. You don't have to think, and you don't have to overthink for sure. So stop overthinking. Obviously I did it when I wanted to start. You obviously have those ideas in your mind